Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Saucy Picks MMA show. As always, I'm your host, Skylar Lurwell. Man, excited to be back. We took a week off last week, dabbled in the Supercross betting just a little bit, got cooked, but it's still fun. Glad to have the UFC back though. Glad to be back. We're in Saudi Arabia. Really a pretty phenomenal card here. Of course, as we all know, the main event is Izzy and Nasruddin Imavov. Co-main is pretty awesome. We'll get to that later. Really not a terrible fight night card, to be completely honest with you. But yeah, I'm excited. I feel like there's some good spots to bet. I feel like some underdogs are going to pull through here this week. I actually don't. I guess I have one better picks bet placed, but other than that, I have no bets locked in yet. This is Wednesday. I'll be locking in my bets there in the next couple days, Thursday, Friday, and then probably I guess not Saturday. It's an early fight time. But Thursday, Friday, I'll be looking at some lines and looking to play some bets. But yeah, I'm excited. Excited to be getting back into it and getting a video made and really again, not a terrible fight card. Interesting choice as far as well, I guess not. Their main card isn't bad at all. I want to say earlier in the week it was Bogdan Grod and Lucas Alexander that were starting off the main card. So it was a little interesting, but it looks like they got it switched around and it's off to a better start. So, but anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. Fight number one on the card: Hamdi Abdelwahab and Jamal Pogues. So relatively slow start to the card. You know, a couple of really fat dudes fighting here. Jamal Pogues is slimmed down a little bit, but still, both of these guys are big heavyweights, large dudes that you don't want on top of you. Uh, I see this fight as a Hamdi needs to wrestle to win, and Jamal Pogues has got to keep it on the feet. We saw it was actually against uh, Thomas Peterson. Jamal Pogues had definitely had some questionable takedown defense and very questionable ground game. Matter of fact, it wasn't even questionable. He just doesn't have it. It's pretty poor, not a very good ground game. And Hamdi is a phenomenal wrestler. I believe an Olympic wrestler. Super good when it comes to the wrestling. Jamal Pogues, we saw, like I said, against Peterson, he got pretty much worked in the first round, and then he was able to come back and win the last two rounds. But if he's able to keep his fight on the feet, if he has some better takedown defense and get up game, and then I think he'll win this fight. Um, but I have a hard time seeing it just with the lack and the last time we saw his wrestling tested, it was just so immature and very green. So it's hard for me to pick him here, just because Hamdi could absolutely get pieced up on the feet by Jamal Pogues, and if he opts to keep it on the feet, he will get pieced up by Jamal Pogues. But if Hamdi is able to get this to the ground, I think this is going to be him all day long. Once he gains, any sort of top control over Jamal Pogues, there won't be much of a battle there for Hamdi, and he'll be able to, ride out the rest of the round on top and land some ground and pound and probably win this fight by decision. So just purely because of the wrestling aspect that Hamdi Abdelwahab brings to the octagon is why I've got to go with him here for the pick. Pretty gross fight though. I'm not really intrigued or interested in any way betting perspective wise. The odds are a pick 'em. It's just not a super awesome fight to put some money on. Just a little bit scary, if you will. But anyway, Bogdan Grod and Lucas Alexander. Pretty good fight here. We've got, Lucas Alexander. He's a very, I guess you could kind of relate him to Israel Adesanya. Just, not to the level, of course, but his fighting style is very similar. He fights on the outside. It's almost a point fighting style, but there's still some aggressiveness there. And then Bogdan Grod, he's the kind of guy that wants to, put a foot in a tire, stand there and trade and just throw bombs, which isn't good, just because there's a lot of holes in his game when it comes to to that kind of style, Bogdangrad gets hit with a lot of shots. There's some major flaws in his defensive game. He wings a lot of shots and hits air oftentimes. He's got some holes for sure. Lucas Alexander, on the other hand, not the best fighter in the world, relatively well rounded. His takedown defense is not very good, and I don't see him opting to take Bogdangrad down here. Um, and with that said, I don't know if he could. Bogdangrad is, has it okay wrestling in his own right. But if Lucas Alexander can control the distance with his footwork, his range, teep kicks, long jabs, I think he should be able to win this fight here. I know he's a dog, but I think I'm going to go with him here. And just for the fact that Bogdangrad gets hit so much in his fights, his defense is pretty poor. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and go with Lucas Alexander. Not a confident pick whatsoever because both these guys are relatively low level. So not a super confident pick. I'm not going to be betting this fight either, just because once again, it's a little bit of a scarier fight to bet. But yeah, that'll be the pick for me is Lucas Alexander over Bogdangrad. Third fight on the card is probably a fight that should be on the main card. Jasmine Jasdavicius versus Mayra Bueno Silva. And a lot of people are on the Jasmine side here this week. Which I understand and I do agree with, but to a certain extent. I feel like Mayra Bueno Silva is being overlooked here. And it's kind of shocking because, I mean, 2 fights ago, she was fighting for a world title. 1 fight ago, she was winning against Macy Chiasson and got elbowed once, cut her open, and the fight was stopped. But she was winning that fight, keep in mind. Mayra Bueno Silva is a tough task for anyone, really any woman's division. I know this is a new division for Mayra Bueno Silva, so that's where I hesitate on the Mayra Bueno Silva side is what is she going to look like on weigh-in day? She's going down an additional 10 pounds. So I definitely am interested to see what she looks like on the scale. If she looks good, I wouldn't be shocked here if she wins this fight. She's going to have better boxing and better striking than Jasmine. Yeah, Jasmine is very aggressive with her striking. She's very um, push the pace, throw big shots, but technically, I mean, literally her technical skills with her striking is not all that great. I think Maribel Silva is going to have better striking here. Of course, as we all know, the front chokes of Maribel Silva are really good. She's got some really good arm bars, really good triangles. And Jasmine Jasdavicius is going to want to do exactly what the game plan should not be for Mayra Bueno Silva, and that is take her down. Jasmine's going to go in there. She's going to be looking for takedowns. She's gonna, do her striking thing that she does, take down Mayra Bueno Silva, and she could be in trouble. I could see Jasmine definitely winning this fight, uh, via decision by riding out, riding time, some ground and pound on the ground, but she's got to be careful there because if she exposes herself too much, Myra's gonna snatch up an arm and take that arm home with her for sure. Um, Man, I was originally going to go with Jasmine here. I really was. When I started this video, I went through and double checked all my picks, and I was on the Jasmine side. But just sitting here talking through, I think I'm going to go with Myra. I talked myself into Myra's side. I think Mayra Bueno Silva is going to have better striking. I think she's going to welcome Jasmine to the ground. Of course, with that said, Jasmine Jasdavicius is also a tough fight for really anyone in this 125-pound division. Um, But man, I think if Myra looks good on the scales, she's probably the side to go with here. So a plus 185 dog, I think. I mean, regardless of my pick, the value is on Myra's side. So that's going to be the pick for me is Myra Bueno Silva. It could be by armbar. Um, could be by decision, just based on striking, winning the moments. Submission attempts, those kinds of things. Something that I would probably look at is either Myra on the money line or this fight, a violence pick, a fight not to go the distance or an under 2.5 is probably the way I would look at it. I always hesitate to bet on women's MMA. just because of the fact that it's so volatile. I mean, it's still pretty low level MMA. It's hard to gauge these fights. So I try to steer clear. Maybe I'll get to the Myra side, a parlay or something like that, but I just don't know if I'll get there yet or not. But again, yeah, I just sitting here talking through it. I think I'm gonna go with Myra here for the pick. Uh, so there's your a second dog now of the fight card. I mean, that's the second dog I've given you. Lucas Alexander is the first one, and then of course Myra here is the second one at plus 185. That she's got the value. She's got a lot of ways to win this fight. Man, I think she could definitely do this. So that's Shitar is going to be the pick for me. Myra Bueno Silva. Terrence McKinney at a ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous line. What is he? Minus 350. Okay, it's come down a little, but I don't know if I trust the Tapology website. I want to say I saw on the books that it was minus 400 plus, which is ridiculous for Terrence McKinney. He's facing Damir Hadzovic, the Bosnian bomber. I think the line is disgusting here. Terrence McKinney should not, in any way, shape, or form, against anyone in the UFC, be a minus 400 favorite. The dude is chinny. He has no cardio. I mean, there's holes in his game. He is super athletic. I'll give him that. He is naturally talented as well. But the problem with Terrence McKinney is, first off, is of course his IQ. It's questionable. Second off is cardio, as I mentioned. Third is chin. He's a chinny dude. Um, Fourth what is Terrence McKinney going to do in this fight? Terrence McKinney, if he goes in there looking to find a KO, he is live to get KO'd himself. Overextend, catch a high kick, just like he did against Esteban Hebovic's this last fight. He left his hands down and his chin up, caught a shin to chin, and went out cold. So if T-Rex goes in there looking to strike, looking for the knockout, it could be dangerous for him. If Terrence McKinney goes in there and wrestles Damir Hadzovic, this is going to be a one-way street. And Terrence McKinney is a high accoladed wrestler. He knows what he's doing on the ground. He has submission victories. Damir Hadzovic has no takedown defense, has zero BJJ defense, no ground game whatsoever. So if I'm Terrence McKinney, I'm looking at this fight saying, I want to win. Let's go in there, take him down, submit him in the first round. I think it's very live for sure. But it's just so hard to trust Terrence McKinney to do that just because he's an exciting fighter. He loves the knockouts, he loves striking. So just based on that, it's hard to. I mean, he's the pick pretty obviously, but at minus 350, it's just pretty gross. Damir Hadzovic, he's a hard guy to side with as well. He got submitted by Renato Moicano pretty quickly, like 45 seconds in the first round. So I really think if Terrence McKinney can take him down, he'll win this fight pretty easily. If Terrence McKinney goes in there and looks for the knockout, he'll probably get it, but there's also a slight chance that he could get KO'd himself. Um, so yeah, the picker is gonna be Terrence. If I was gonna bet this, and I've actually looked at the lines, I'm either betting this. Yeah, I'm probably betting this a Terrence McKinney submission. His inside the distance line wasn't very good. Either a submission or Terrence McKinney knockout. The knockout was at plus 280, and then his submission line was at plus 100, so it's even money there. So that's where I'm looking at it as from a betting perspective. The pick is going to be Terrence, but man, it's just so hard to trust the guy nowadays just because he's chinny and he loves to strike. So we'll see how it goes. Terrence will be the pick. Shamil Gaziev versus Thomas Peterson. I think this is going to be a closer fight than most people think. The odds are crazy for this fight. I feel like Thomas Peterson is getting overlooked. Um, and here's why. In Thomas Peterson's last fight against Muhammad Usman, his striking looked pretty good. It really did. Um, like it looked improved. It looked like he'd been working on it. He was really trying to progress his striking, and it looked like it. It really did. Thomas Peterson is also a really good wrestler. Shamil Gaziev, a really good wrestler. So Here's where it comes down to. I think the wrestling is going to cancel each other out pretty close. Shamil might get a takedown in the first round. If he does, it could be trouble for Thomas Peterson. However, if Thomas Peterson can survive the first round, I think he's very live to win this fight. I really do. We've seen Shamil Gaziev gas before. He's a big dude. He does look in shape. If you look at his Instagram, a little more in shape than he has been in the past. But Thomas Peterson's striking is good, probably not as good as Shamil's. So that's where I definitely has at minus 400. I can't bet the Shamil Gaziev line, but he'll probably be the pick for me. But again, Thomas the Train Peterson, he is very, very live to win this fight. I think if he can make it past, that 7.5 minute mark, he could find a finish. He could work his own wrestling, find some ground and pound. He's live. He's live here to win this fight. So at plus 300 underdog, I mean, they say moderate dog here, but that's a big underdog. So plus 300 might not be a bad line. And I'd imagine that's probably growing. Again, you do have the problem of this is in, is it Dubai or Abu Dhabi? This is in, where is it here? Oh, Saudi Arabia. Neither. Wow, that was nice. So this is in Saudi Arabia. So it's Shamil's, backyard, which is definitely not awesome. If you're on the Thomas Peterson side, it's probably though, to be honest with you, it's probably going to be a Shamil Gaziev by, split decision, 29-28. But it's going to be one of those decisions that you're like, Thomas Peterson could have won that. So just because of the judging and where they're at, I'm going to pick with the Shamil Gaziev side. But I could see Thomas Peterson finding a way to win this. Absolutely. Alrighty, Muhammad Naimov versus Khan Offley. So Muhammad Naimov coming off a submission loss to Felipe Lima. Khan Offley coming off a pretty nasty KO against Myron Santos. I think Khan Offley's coming back too quick after that KO. I really do. The dude got absolutely starched. I mean, just slumped. It was a nasty KO from Myron Santos. I was higher on Khan Offley. Um, Before his Myron Santos fight, I thought he was going to be able to get inside, work the clinch, find a takedown on Myron. Really thought he was going to win that fight. And I was high on him before that fight. He'd beaten guys on the regional scene. William, let's see, Abraham, let's see. Yeah, William Wilbraham, I believe is his name. He's on the regional scene. He's a great fighter. Con Offley beat him. Um, so I really thought he was going to beat Santos, and man, he went in there. He freaked out, is what he did. He couldn't get a takedown. Started freaking out, lunging punches, and got caught with a left hook. Got slumped. Naimov, on the other hand, really was looking good against Felipe Lima. I don't know if anyone really knew how good Felipe Lima was before the Naimov fight. I mean, we all know, there was some hype around him, and we all knew about the hype, but we didn't. At least for me, I didn't realize how good Felipe Lima was until he fought Naimov, and then look what he did against Miles Johns just recently. Um, but people forget. People forget after a loss. That Naimov had last time out. People forget what he did. I mean, he was the first one really to starch Jamie Malarkey. He came out, he was a huge underdog in that fight, and he starched Jamie Malarkey. He's got good hands. He's really, really fast with his hands, good boxing. His takedown defense is okay. It's not the greatest, but he's got some offensive wrestling on his own. And Con Offley, I just don't know if he's going to be able to find takedowns here. It's going to be his game plan. He's got T-Rex arms. He's a tiny little dude, 5'7". He probably should be a 35 pounder. I just, I have a hard time seeing Con Offley get this one done. And matter of fact, I see this one probably being a KO from Naimov. Con Offley's coming off that brutal KO too early. He's coming back too early. His striking is good until he starts freaking out. And I think Naimov will be able to ward off the takedowns. And if he does get taken down, I think he'll be able to make his way back up. I see this one ending via KO. I see a Naimov KO here. So that's gonna be the pick is Naimov. The money line is not my favorite price tag there, a little expensive. But at the KO price, I'm sure you're getting plus money there. I'll probably be playing it is Muhammad Naimov KO or inside the distance. But yeah, that's the pick. I just don't think Con Offley is going to be around for very long. Main card time, we've got Fareez Ziam and Davis. A lot of people are on the Mike Davis side this week, and I can understand it. I really can. Um, Faraz Ziam has had some wrestling issues in the past, and Mike Davis is a wrestler. Uh, but you saw, at least for me, I saw in Faraz Ziam's last fight against um how come I can't remember Matt Frivola. Uh he had some very improved takedown defense. I believe he stuffed every one of Matt Frivola's takedowns, and Matt Frivola is a really good wrestler. And Faraz Ziam actually had some offensive wrestling on his own. There are definitely losses that stand out. The Claudio Puelas loss for Ziam suffered is rough. The Terrence McKinney submission loss is rough. But you got to remember that was, a couple of years ago. This dude's on a 4-fight win streak now, looking really good. Tall, fights behind a jab, a really nice jab. His striking's really good. And Mike Davis is old, and when I say old, he's been around a long time. The problem is he's suffered from injuries, long layoffs. I don't think his heart is in it. I was reading something the other day. It was actually posted by Hayden Iverson. His at is Hey Jive Picks. He had some sort of internal information that Mike Davis just fights because he's good at it. He doesn't love it. He makes his money elsewhere. So that is definitely hesitating. So I think I'm gonna go with the Faraz Ziam side here. I think he'll be able to stuff the takedowns. I think his get up game is getting much better. I think he'll be able to stick behind the jab, control the distance. If he does get taken down, I see him getting back up, getting to the fence, crawling back up. I think this is Ziam for sure. So there's your, another dog for you. Plus 120. I think Faraz Ziam wins this fight. Nurmagomedov and Vinicius Oliveira. So the hype on Vinicius Oliveira is very, I don't know, it's booming right now. Everyone's on the Oliveira side. I mean, he is a dog here, but I feel like after that Ricky Simone win, everyone's been Vinicius Oliveira, highlight awesomeness. And I mean, the dude is not that good. He's got a very, I don't know how to put this, but his striking is very jerky, like not patternized or patternable. It's just herky jerky, his striking is weird. So it's kind of like Yuri Prohaska is how I would put it. Um, just not super good. He gets hit a lot, and that fighting style is going to do that to you. It's gonna you know make you get hit a lot. As far as the Said Nurmagomedov side, and I have more to say about Vinicius. Just let me go through Said. So Said, of course, he has some wrestling, not as good a wrestling as you would think with the Nurmagomedov name, but it's good enough wrestling to get by. His striking is good. His teeps, he's rangy, fights behind a jab. He's not going to take a lot of risk. But of course, the thing that everyone's going to be saying this week is Said Nurmagomedov's front chokes are really good. He's won his last two fights by submission. I think if he can take down Vinicius Oliveira, which I think he can, and get to the back or even in a spot, to find a Darce choke or a ninja choke, I think this is Said by submission. Um, But again, on the Vinicius Oliveira side, the dude's been knocked out 3 times. He gets hit a lot. He nearly lost to Bernardo Sopai, in the first 2 rounds, and then Sopai gassed himself out trying to finish Vinicius. So that's I see some issues with Vinicius for sure. I think Said is going to take this fight here at minus 185. I don't mind the line. It is a little steep, but there's some value still there. Um, I would probably look at his submission line just because it's the most likely outcome. I think his wrestling's good enough to take down Vinicius Oliveira. Oliveira's takedown defense isn't the best. And I think his submission defense is pretty bad as well. So I'm gonna go with Saeed by submission here. Definitely a line I'd like to take a closer look at. I'm sure you're getting plus money at the submission line. I think that's the way this fight goes. Three fights left. We've got Sergey Pavlovich versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Sergey, he is on a two-fight losing streak, and Jairzinho, I believe, is on a two-fight winning streak. It could be three. Don't quote me on that. But man, Sergey has kind of, in the public eye, has kind of lost the Pavlovich name, if you will. I mean, Sergey was a killer, man. His only loss was to Alistair Overeem. He was starching dudes. He knocked out Curtis Blades in the first round. I mean, this dude was a problem. And then Tom Aspinall walks in, starches him in the first round, and that started his I hate to call it a downfall, but his skid, his two fight skid. He then lost to Alexander Volkov, which I mean is a loss that looks really good now because Volkov just barely beat Cyril Gahn. Don't at me. He beat Cyril Gahn. Doesn't matter what those judges say. Biggest robbery of 2024. So don't at me on that one. He just lost to Alexander Volkov, which is a good loss. You know, I know it's no losses are good, but it's a good loss. And he really just lost that fight based on footwork and length. Here against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Rozenstruik is a slow starter. He is going to want to stay to the outside, kickbox, low kick, uses jab a lot, those kinds of things. And I just don't think Sergey's going to put up with that. I think Sergey's going to walk in there. He's going to have a new sense of confidence. He's going to walk in there, walk down Jairzinho, and he's gonna do what he does and knock him out in the first round. With that said, of course, Jairzinho always has a chance to knock somebody out if he lands the right shot. He can put anyone away. There's no doubt about that. But I just think Sergey is going to be coming in here with again a new sense of confidence, wanting to get back in the win column, and I think he's probably going to find that KO in the first round. At a minus 300, I hate it. I hate that price tag. And I'm sure the inside the distance number is probably chalky as well. So from a betting perspective, I'm going to steer clear of this fight. I just don't think there's much value on either side. And to be quite frank, it's a very volatile fight. Anything can happen. Sure, Sergey is probably more likely to find the KO, but anything could happen, man. So Shara Magomedov and Michael Page. All right, so there's a few fighters in the UFC that I just really like to fade. And one of those being oh, one of those being Magomed Ankalaev. I started fading him when he first fought Iwan Kutelaba. That hasn't worked out for me very well. And then Shar Magomedov. I have been fading this dude since he got to the UFC. Um, I thought Bruno Silva was going to use his wrestling more, and he just wasn't able to get it going. Armin Petrosian is a good fighter. I thought Armin Petrosian was going to find a way to win that fight. Chara pulled through. Um, I guess Tricoli. I did not fade Chara against the Tricoli fight. I figured Chara was going to win that one. Um, but yeah, I just I'm a fader of Chara Magomedov, and I think I'm going to fade him here as well. MVP is tricky. I think people forget how really tricky this dude is to beat. I mean, as far as getting finished, he's only been finished once in his entire career against I believe it was Douglas Lima in Bellator. He got knocked out. Other than that, the times he's lost, it's been like guys to like Logan Storley. He really pushed the pace with the wrestling. Ian Machado Gary, it was a competitive fight, but Machado Gary won that fight with the wrestling. That's where Michael Page loses is with wrestling. And I just don't think Shara Magomedov. I mean, I know he's not gonna shoot a takedown, and even if he could, he wouldn't. I just don't think he has the wrestling to push that kind of pace. If you're looking at Michael Page and how little he gets hit, I mean, he is so good at steering clear of shots. He knows distance really well. He started kickboxing at 3 years old. So he's 37 now. He's got 34 years of kickboxing experience. I mean, the dude knows how to fight with his hands, with his legs, with his elbows. Saw him against Kevin Holland. Made Kevin Holland look silly, which I'm happy with, to be honest with you. I wasn't really impressed with Kevin Holland after I mean, there's been a lot of things, but especially after this Jackson podcast incident, it just was not cool of Kevin Holland to, yeah, make a fool of Rampage Jackson like that. But Rampage handled it well. Anyway, that's a tangent. But Michael Page is good, dude. He is a good fighter. He made that fight with Ian Machado Gary, very competitive. He just lost in the grappling. So if you're gonna give me a straight up kickboxing match, which this is going to be a kickboxing match, there will not be any takedowns. If you're gonna give me a straight up kickboxing match and Michael Page is in that fight, I'm probably gonna go with Michael Page more likely than not. Um, I just think he's being overlooked here at plus 155. He's a dog. I love the line. I'll take him as a dog anytime in a fight like this. I mean, Sharmagomedov, I've said it before, I'll say it again. His hands are not that good. Sharmagomedov's hands are not that good. His kicks are really good, but his boxing and his hands are pretty bad. I know we saw a crazy double spinning back fist his last fight out, but that was set up with the kicks. It really was. His kicks are really good. His hands are not. I don't think Shar is going to be able to land very well here. I think, excuse me. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be able to land very well here. I think he's going to get frustrated just like Kevin Holland did. I think Michael Page is going to take the center of the octagon um and control the cage the whole time. Shar is going to be fighting on the back foot. I think Page is going to be able to avoid most of the shots from Shara Magomedov and make Shara hit air a lot of the times. And so I see a decision win for Michael Page here. I know that's scary against an OV in Saudi Arabia, but again, another thing that Hayden Iverson pointed out, he said Michael Page is a Muslim, and I double checked, verified, and he is. So let's get that going. Let's keep that going. Make sure the judges know that Michael Page is a Muslim in Saudi Arabia. I think this is Michael Page by decision. I really do. The fading of Shara Magomedov will continue. It will always continue. There's going to be a fraud check one of these days, and it's going to be by 37-year-old Michael Venom Page. The main event of the evening. Here we go. Nasruddin Imavov versus Israel Adesanya. So, I got to be honest with you. I'm seeing a lot of guys going back and forth on this fight. I have not been back and forth on this fight really at all. I feel like this is a clean cut. I mean, clean cut and dry. There's levels to this game. I think that's what this fight is there's levels to this game, and Israel Adesanya is a much higher level than Nasruddin Imavov. Israel Adesanya lost his last fight to Dricus du Plessis, but you have to understand Dricus du Plessis is a very different fighter than Nasruddin Imavov. Imavov has good striking, but I edge Israel on the striking. I mean, pretty much hands down. He's going to have better body kicks, better low kicks. His hands are really fast. And against what everyone else is saying, I thought Adesanya looked really good against Dricus du Plessis. I mean, his hands were fast, his kicks were fast, his body work was phenomenal. Yeah, it's a little easier to hit Dricus with the body work just due to his guard being raised so high all the time. Nasruddin's guard is down lower, quite a bit lower. So the body work is going to be a little trickier for Adesanya, but I definitely think the last style bender edges the striking. And then, of course, you can look to Nasruddin wrestling. Here's problem number one I see with that is, can you trust Nasruddin Imavov to wrestle? Okay, can you trust it? That's the first question. If the answer is no, then the clear cut, pick here is Israel Adesanya. Let's say the answer is yes, and you can trust Nasruddin Imavov to wrestle. The dude can't wrestle more than seven minutes, maybe 10 minutes, and then he's gassed. I mean, he really has a problem with his gas tank. Adesanya has lived in 5 round fights. Nasruddin Imavov looks crappy after the second round. So, I mean, I have a hard time seeing how Adesanya loses this. I think Adesanya is still very much in title contention and in the title picture, especially with a win here. I hear a lot of people saying, Adesanya's made a ton of money and he's ready to go. I don't think that's the case. I think if Adesanya wins this, he is very much in the title picture. Think about it. If Dricus loses to Hamza, if they're going to make Adesanya and Hamza, and that's a huge fight. That's one of the biggest fights you can make in the industry right now. And Adesanya knows that. He's a smart dude. He's a gritty Nigerian. He's legit. He's a much better fighter than Nasruddin Imavov, and this fight is going to be simply there's levels to this game, and we're going to see it. We're going to see that Nasruddin Imavov is not to the level of Israel Adesanya, at least not yet. At 28 years old, he's got some time to grow. But I think this is Israel Adesanya, probably a 5 round masterclass from him, to be honest with you. And you got to think, I mean, even if Nasruddin is able to get Adesanya to the ground, there's been much better wrestlers try to take Israel Adesanya down, succeed, and Israel Adesanya still finds a way to get up. His get up game is second to none. His takedown defense is really good. I just see Israel Adesanya covering Nasruddin Imavov everywhere here. And at minus 180, there's value there. There is value on the Adesanya side. And we're going to look back on this fight after it's over. At least I'm going to, and I'm gonna say, man, one minus 180 on Israel Adesanya, phenomenal price tag. There's value there. He's gonna look minus 400 here. I'm mark my words. I'm telling you. But anyway, that's it for you, ladies and gentlemen. Israel Adesanya versus Nasruddin Imavov, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The fight breakdown. It's a great card. I'm excited. Don't forget early start time. I believe I'll be in Florida actually during the fight. So I believe 10 o'clock is the prelims, and then it'll be 2 o'clock is the main card over on the East Coast. But yeah, make sure to tune in. I'm super stoked. We're gonna make some money. It's been a little bit of a drier, January. There's been some tougher losses for sure. Started out hot, and then the last two fight nights, we've had a little bit of a cold streak, but that changes this fight night. That changes this Saturday. We're gonna make some money. We're gonna have some great bets placed. Stay tuned for the ladder challenge. We've unfortunately been cooked 3 weeks in a row. But we're gonna start it again this week. We're gonna start over on week one, turning $10 into $10,000. Stay tuned for the Instagram video. It's coming out. But yeah, make sure to follow me on all social medias at Saucy Picks MMA. And I guess we will see you next week.